of impeachment. And Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell says that's fine. Here, though, is what Senator Lindsey Graham said about this last night.
I just left President Trump. He's mad as hell that they would do this to him and now deny him his day in court. The reason they're denying his day in court is they know their case sucks.
Well, we're going to talk all about this. Let's bring in Joe Lockhart, former White House press secretary under President Clinton and a CNN political commentator, and Bianna Golodryga, CNN senior global affairs analyst. Joe, now what? I mean, this is an impasse. Yeah, John has described it as a game of poker between these two stellar poker players, Mitch McConnell and Nancy Pelosi, but that there's a joker in the deck who might mess things up, which is a great analogy. But what, can we just stay in this limbo indefinitely?
It's not indefinite. I think by the middle of January, we'll have this sorted out. But it is three-dimensional political warfare. It's Nancy Pelosi, I think, very effectively driving a wedge between Mitch McConnell and the president. Mitch McConnell's equity here is his senators, protecting those 6 vulnerable senators, Martha McSally, Susan Collins, Cory Gardner. The president's equities are, he wants to do a vindication tour. He wants to go around like he did after the election in 2016 and say, see, I was right, I'm exonerated. And Pelosi has figured out a way to drive that wedge and, just as importantly, keep the issue of these live witnesses alive as long as she can. That is a very popular idea.
Why? How popular?
71%, exact, of Americans. 65% of Republicans in this country want to see John Bolton and Mick Mulvaney testify.
So if that's the discussion, that is a winning issue for Democrats, even if the process might seem unseemly to them. And I think you have to take into account that third dimension you're bringing in there to understand this all, until you consider that the president is arguing for a trial now. Until you understand that he is putting pressure on Mitch McConnell, I don't think you fully understand what Nancy Pelosi gets out of it.
Yeah, and he's dug his heels in, and who knows what will happen over the next 2 weeks. Maybe the president will finally be convinced and he should listen to Mitch McConnell and that this will work out sooner rather than later for him. But for now, you're right. He absolutely thinks he should be vindicated, and he wants this to be a big show trial. I think what also is interesting is that you really, for the first time in a long time, you see the two leaders really added, right? You have Nancy Pelosi taking on Mitch McConnell, and you're reminded at this point last year, there was a real debate within the Democratic Party as to whether she should be the leader. And imagine if anybody else who had been more of a neophyte and younger taking on this unique situation, I'm not sure anybody else would have had the gravitas to do that. So she really is the right person at the right time. This was handed to her unexpectedly in the sense that they did not think they would get this much pushback from Republicans, but here they are, and she's buying as much time as she can before they're in the minority situation.
I think about that all the time, that there was a compelling argument back then for new blood, out with the old, new blood. And now the fact that she has been this masterful chess player and through all of this, it just seems it's impossible to imagine that somebody else.
Yeah. The president has really elevated her, right? And she's at the top of her game, one could argue. And I think given all of these hurdles that we've seen over the past few months, she's really taken command of the party, of her caucus. And all you hear from every single person you talk to and that you interview on air, they have faith in whatever decision she ultimately comes to.
If the issue of is who's got game, though, Mitch McConnell's also a playa,
of course,
as they say. Joe Lockhart, this is a guy who held up a Supreme Court nomination.
Yeah.
No one plays as high stakes as Mitch McConnell does, and he's not used to losing either.
No, he's not, and it will undermine his arguments of precedent and institutionalism and the answer to that will be Merrick Garland. Every time he talks about what's good for the Senate, Democrats are going to stand up and say Merrick Garland. But what he is he plays hardball, and it's not about ideology. It's about winning. And right now he has a pretty strong hand, and to torture the metaphor more. Now, the Joker is what's the problem? The president is his Achilles heel right now.
He's used to winning, but the question is winning for whom this time? And Nancy Pelosi may have just created a third team in this.
Yes, but I will say, if you look back over Mitch McConnell's career, he's always been about winning for what's in his interest. Mm-hmm. It has been in his interest. He wanted to remake the judiciary even more than Donald Trump did. He's the one who convinced Donald Trump, That's what we should focus our effort on, because he believes in that. That's about raw power. He will always do what's in Mitch McConnell's interest. And going back to Pelosi, I don't think she's upped her game. She's always had this game. So this is someone who's never lost a vote. And I thought it was really interesting that Tim Ryan, the person who ran against her a few years ago, came out and said, "Thank God I lost. She is better. I could not do what she did. I'm glad she's our leader."
And she's been ultimately challenged here. Yep. I think the irony cannot be lost, though, that Mitch McConnell just a few days ago said that this is about politics and not necessarily a legal process. And now he's accusing the Democrats and Nancy Pelosi of making this political. So there you have it.
It does seem one thing is clear, that this will not be resolved in the next 2 weeks. This will last through the holidays, and everyone in Congress will return to Washington the week of, January 6th, January 7th, and it may still not be resolved.
And the benefit for Democrats is Martha McSally, Susan Collins, Cory Gardner are going to be chased around by reporters in their home state saying, "Where are you on witnesses? Where are you on this?" As opposed to the trial is starting and it'll be over very quickly. This is a very good political move.
And this has all happened rather quickly. Remember, it was just September that we found out about all of this. And every day we continue to hear new information, the latest bombshell from the Washington Post about Vladimir Putin, perhaps in Germany of 2017, having planted in the president's head that it was Ukraine. I mean, it's going to be harder and harder for Republicans to continue to defend the president as he wants them to by saying this was a perfect call and this is all on Ukraine, as we're getting more and more background.
Bianca Golodryga, Joe Lockhart, great to have you here this morning.
Thank you, guys.
We have a brand new poll on the 2020 race with new data